saw some numbers flash out.
Don't worry about it. Just ignore that. We are recording. Yeah,
We're recording.
This is officially the start of the podcast. So
Nice.
yeah.
Hi, Chris.
Hi. How's it going? How
It's
you doing?
good. I just love making STDs with you.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
The grislier, the better.
Yes. How are you?
TDs. Yeah, I'm good. What did you have for dinner last night?
Last night it was, I don't know, something Italian with it was a pastry cheesy thing with bacon. It was nice. You?
I had sea salt and cracked black pepper coated bassa fillets,
right,
with sweet potato fries. It was really good.
Bassa, is that fish or
It's a
something?
type of fish, yeah.
Tau,
It
yeah,
might be
tau
called
lunch.
bassa. Yeah, tau for lunch.
Nice.
What's your favourite colour?
I don't have favourite colours.
Purple.
Purple. It's purple.
Weird choice. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we've got all that out of the way. Yeah, welcome to the podcast. It's the STC
Yes.
podcast where we talk about lore and stuff like that, and we answer questions. We've given up on that though. We're not answering questions this week. No, it'll be back. I'm just messing with you. It'll be back. We'll do like a really cool Halloween thing coming up soon, probably.
Are we?
Yeah, Halloween's coming up soon.
Right.
We'll do some special questions for that. But
Sure.
in the middle, you're right in the middle. If you're tuning in and you never watched this before, you need to go back an episode, by the way, because we're in the middle of a propaganda series
Right.
at the moment where we are going through all the factions, giving you a really in-depth tabletop analysis, how their units function, what their lore is like. You're right there?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah, and we covered, like last episode, we covered in-depth stuff like Eldar tactics, things like that, aspect warriors,
in depth,
things like that. And I think someone in the comments even mentioned how much they enjoyed the how in-depth we went on Eldar.
Yeah,
because there's not a lot of Eldar resources out there. It's almost like people don't like Eldar. It's weird. don't know what that's all about, but
yeah. I mean, nothing wrong with that faction. Lovely miniatures, you know.
Yeah,
all the raid constructs look really good, really pretty. It's a great faction. Yeah,
play beautifully. So we'll bring you some more of that.
But
usually, if you we'll answer questions, and if you want to become a member of the channel, you can come to the Discord. You can ask questions. We'll answer the questions.
Yes,
but not this time. So you're all out of luck this time. Now we are famously very prepared for our podcast.
Yes.
And we sat down and we said, right, what did we get to last time?
Yeah.
Roughly, I think we did Chaos Space Marines.
We're going through all the factions, and we finished at C. And we were supposed to do it all in one hit. And
that was
C.
Yeah. It was a pipe dream. We like to commit to things that we definitely can't achieve.
Do you think we'll finish them in this one? There can't be many in the Z, but there was a lot in the A.
There's quite a few, but it depends.
This and AdMech that, and
there's lots of Astra things.
Yeah,
but actually, according to my calculations,
right,
we're currently at the dreaded Death Guard.
Death Guard.
Now, I'd say Death Guard are a faction that you play if you don't like your friends that you play against.
Right.
You want them to feel bad when they're playing, right?
Yeah.
Because lore-wise, not only are you Space Marines who, in lore, are just repulsive to be around, to look at, to smell. They give you STDs just by standing near them.
Yeah, big fans of the show. They love the show.
They love the show.
Yeah.
They've got boils that stuff comes out of them. Their guts are hanging out. They probably don't brush their teeth, which is a bit rough. But famously, what they do is they don't die very easily. Well, they used to not die very easily. Wow. So I can smell the Death Guard from here.
Yeah, that's disease already.
Yeah. They don't die very easily, and they kind of ruin their opponents, right? So where are they currently at in 10th edition?
I mean, you can play Death Guard if you like your friends. They used to have all the feel no pains and all the resilience, and now the resilience is just in the fact that they're really tough. So they're tough. They're tougher Space Marines. They've got a tougher, higher toughness. Their vehicles have invulnerable saves. They're tougher. And they also have contagions, which means that they make you weaker when you get closer and closer to them. You know, that's basically their thing. Lots of poisoned weaponry as well, so lots of lethal hits. So when they hit you with stuff, sometimes it automatically wounds, but they are slow. They give up that stuff. They are a slow, monotonous, grinding force that just rolls over the opponent. And I think, basically, if you want to play tough Space Marines, it's the way to go. And their model range is fantastic. They look good. They've got lots of life. They've got lots of personality and lots of little tiny Nurglings that jump around with them. And it's as far as Chaos Gods go, because you know they follow Nurgle. It's one of the happiest Chaos Gods to follow, right? They're always smiling
exactly.
And they're laughing. They're having a great time. Death Guard is fun for all the family.
Death Guard is fun for all the family. They were notoriously one of the easiest factions to get into. Because they had a complete release at the start of 8th edition, wasn't it? It was the 8th edition box set. And for a while, lots and lots of people had Death Guard armies. I think their reputation of, oh my gosh, comes from the older versions of them when some of their demon engines were really, really nasty. Specifically the Playburst Crawler. But I think it's been toned down a little bit now.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you don't want to be... If you want a tough army and you don't want to play good guys like Custodes, Death Guard are your go-to. Not only do you have the toughness and you weaken your opponents around you, but you also get access to some really cool units as well, like the Death Shroud. Just awesome looking Terminators with giant scythes that squirt. They've actually got something called a spurt gun.
It's called the spurt gun, yeah.
The spurt gun.
Yeah.
So if you can spurt unspecified stuff. Little lore tidbit that I really enjoyed. I think it's gone now, but there used to be a relic bile spewer thing.
Right.
And the story behind it was, in the description for it, was that it was linked to a portal that was inside a great unclean one, a greater demon of Nurgle.
Nice.
It was inside its stomach. So when he pulled the trigger on this thing, it would pull the horrible juice and whatever was inside this thing and spray it everywhere. Which I thought was really cool.
I didn't know that, yeah. Famously, they're all farmers. The spurting is to pollinate the crops for the garden of Nurgle, and the scythes are all for the reaping of the wheat to make the nice bread and the biscuits and the cookies. It's Space Marine farmers in the 40k universe. They're nice.
Yeah. You get some good lore with it. You get Lords of Silence, great book. You get some fun stuff in the is it the Dark Imperium books where you get to see you get to hang out with all the demons, and they're quite fun to read about.
They're very established in the lore.
Yeah.
OG Death Guard. What's not to like? They're lovely. I like that.
There you go. Yeah. There you go.
We did a D.
We did a D.
That was easy. That was one big D.
The next D,
another D.
Yeah, we need to go really in depth on this one.
Double D.
Just to make sure we appease the players that like this certain type of thing. But it's Drukhari.
Drukhari.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what they are?
Well, yeah, Drukhari. I think the less said about them, the better. Let's skip that one.
Okay. Right. This is another one of my favourite factions here.
Yes.
Just for the flavour of them. It's the Genestealer Cults.
Oh, okay. You like them.
I like them in theory, right? But this is an interesting one for our propaganda. Because I didn't say at the start, the idea of this is we think there's there's going to be another minor surge of people coming to 40k who perhaps are into the lore or have played Space Marine 2 and might be looking at getting armies. We've seen people get into it. It seems to have really blown up. Talking of Space Marine 2, great game.
Great game.
Great game. Go check it out if you haven't, because it's who hasn't? Sorry, that's stupid. Everybody's played Space Marine 2.
Even Henry. Even Henry's played Space Marine 2.
Even Henry. Well, the Hoover.
That Henry the Hoover, the one with the nose, which moves up. That's a deep cut. I like that one. That's good.
The red guy,
He had little eyes and everything.
He was great. I love
Henry the Hoover. I haven't seen
Henry
a Henry the Hoover for ages.
Do you know they did a like a Henrietta. They did a pink Henry Hoover as well, and there's like another one. Yeah, there's a couple of different characters in Henry's universe.
There's a whole family of them out there.
It's an established lore now, I think. Yeah, there's a whole family of...
When's the last time you saw Henry the Hoover? I mean, I don't think I've seen one since the 90s.
I want to like join in with this and say I've never seen one before, and I haven't seen one for a long time, whatever. But I've got one.
You've got one?
Yeah, it's out in the corridor. I'd go get it if I wanted to.
Wow.
No, I'm not
and I haven't seen one since the 90s. I thought they'd gone back to their planet, but no, they're with you.
I have one. I'll tell you what I'll do. After this, I'll take a photo of it, send it to you so you can reminisce.
Thanks. Yeah, it'd be nice to see Henry again.
Yeah. So, yeah, what I was saying was, the purpose of this was we wanted to go through and just give an overview of the factions, how they play on the table, so that if someone was thinking about getting, an established 40k player, needed a bit of a nudge to go for an army, they were like, oh, I don't know what to go for, you could go with that. Or if you've not played before, you can go with this. Genestealer Cults, personally, I'm going to say, are not a good starter faction if you're just getting into 40k. Would you agree with that?
No, they're very finesse armies. There's different types of armies, play styles in Warhammer 40k. There's aggressive all-out armies, and there's resilient armies that can kind of take it. There's also something called finesse armies that either they're glass cannons or lots of movement shenanigans, lots of redeployment shenanigans, so you kind of need to know the missions and 40k quite well to make them sing properly. You can play with them, but it's going to be a rough ride unless you really know the mechanics of what you're doing and the main rules and the thing a bit better. They're a finesse army because one of the things they do is they've got redeployment options. They've got blips and redeployment options. So cult ambush, they spring back up from underground and surprise ambush people here, there and everywhere. So there's a recycling mechanic in the game as well, which allows you to bring back units that have been destroyed. They're really weak units, but you can bring them back, and once you've got units back in, then you can use them to score things, secondaries and things like that. Finesse army, popping up, popping down, bit like whack-a-mole. Bit like hungry hippos. They're all over the place, mad as a box of frogs.
They're also, I think that physically they're quite an expensive army to collect because
you need thousands of them.
You need lots of them. They're anything that has a low point units is going to be quite expensive because you need a lot of them. And Games Workshop loves putting like tiny little models. 5 of them for a lot of money. It's just a thing they do. There's one of those other factions with the elf guys. The Howling Banshees are a good example of that.
Right.
But Genestealer Cults, the whole point of them is that they are humans that have been kind of slowly taken over by Genestealers, ready for a future date when the rest of the Tyrannid swarm come along and they're ready to consume them as biomass. They think it's a glorious thing, they're ready for it. So generation after generation sort of get more and more Genestealery once they're infected, and this kind of represents the army kind of represents maybe like a mining colony or some kind of group of people that are very deep into that process of being taken over. So you have guys that are nearly all the way Genestealers, who are your really powerful melee units, and then you have guys that are basically like guardsmen at this point, but something's a little off when you look at them. It's like, you're right there, you've got like a extra arm sprouting out the side here, or
if Dave starts growing an extra arm while he's working down in the mines, you should call your local Inquisitor. Extra arms are definitely a bad sign.
Bad sign, yeah.
And a tail, things like that.
Yeah, the tail's not good.
There's a
giant
giveaway.
Claws. Yeah, they're a fantastic flavour of army. Anyway,
the lore behind them is fantastic. The idea that the Tyrannid fleets that you may have seen in Space Marine 2, there's vanguard organisms which range way ahead and infect human populations, and those human populations rise up, viva la revolution, and help prepare the ground, weaken the civilizations ready for the coming of the high fleets, which will rescue all the little men that have pave the way and do absolutely nothing horrible to them whatsoever. They'll thank them. They'll give them a ribbon, a medal. They'll have a great time.
Yeah, No, not being turned into soup. Definitely not.
No.
Not going to be a soup.
That's Imperial propaganda, that is. Don't listen to the Imperial propaganda. No, it'll be a great ascension day. You'll be ascended by the star gods up to their ships and taken to a brave new world. It'll be fine.
Yeah, you'll love it. But yeah, there you go. So, in summary, if you're up for a ridiculous challenge, you don't mind losing every single game you play, but then maybe coming out a better 40k player, Genestealer Cults might be for you. If not, if you're an established player and you want something that isn't Space Marines, maybe think about Genestealer Cults.
Great lore behind it, though. Very good lore.
Let's go back to some actual Space Marines, shall we?
Okay, shall we?
This one is they're very different from your average boys, though. This is the Grey Knights.
Ooh, Grey Knights.
Notoriously the faction that has a baby, basically a big robot suit with a Space Marine just strapped to the front of it like a mother carrying a child. It's lovely.
Grey Knights are one of those factions that Games Workshop has done dirty on the tabletop forever, except in 5th edition. Because Grey Knights, like Space Marines, super hard killing machines. Everyone knows what the Space Marines do. Imagine our entire Space Marine chapter, and they're all Psykers as well. They're all wizards as well. So they should be as hard as Space Marines, but with all the magical powers, and with their own Forge World floating around on top of their planet, feeding them and only them with very specific weaponry for them. And their bolters have got Psybolt rounds, which is infused with the ash and the residue that comes off of the Golden Throne, which repulses demons. And they have Aegis armor with patterns which repel. These are the Space Marines that don't wait for demons to come to our reality to fight them. They'll go into the warp.
We go after
fight
them.
Demons in the warp. They should be, if a Space Marine is 10 points, they should be 40 points each. If a Space Marine army consists of 80 models, a Grey Knight army should consist of 20 or 30 models. But Games Workshop want you to buy a lot more things. So in this particular edition, Grey Knights are... They've got some psychic powers and they've got some of that thing that you expect them to have, but they've turned them into a movement-based army because they also deploy on the battlefield using teleportation technology and teleport shunt technology. They can move around very quickly as well. So they're fast, they're resilient, they've got their own stuff and things. They hate the demons. And on the tabletop, what they are super fast Space Marines jumping around here, there, and everywhere and disappearing again. If you come near them, they disappear. If you shoot at them, they might disappear. If you do something over here, they might disappear. Lots of tactical repositioning with the Grey Knights. But as far as lore goes, one of the coolest. They're the elite of the elite of the elite of the elite. They're the coolest Space Marine. I like the Grey Knights. They're so cool.
The Grey Knights are very cool. I'm a big fan of Dread Knights as well. I think they look cool. There's a bit of a meme about them because they do look like a baby strapped to a mother. They're kind of strapped to the front of these things. But I think they're great 40k ridiculous designs.
Yeah, you need a big Dread Knight when you're fighting a really big demon. Otherwise, you fight the little, because when they got the really big, the one in Space Marine 2 with the thing that you poke in the eye with the thing, strap yourself into a really big war suit. And it's plugged into their spinal column. So when the Space Marine moves the arm, the Warsuit moves its arm, moves its list. So it's fast, still as fast as the Hellbrute. It'll move around all over the place. Yeah, great Space Marine chapter.
Great army. In terms of the actual army itself, I guess the biggest problem we've got to say is that the models are older, and therefore you will be using Firstborn scale Space Marines, who do tend to they are slowly becoming very small compared to the
There's
stuff
an imminent refresh. Grey Knights, either this year, next year, at some point, Grey Knights will cross the Primaris Rubicon and get their upscale. But no news on that at time of recording. I reckon a year or two away at least. but we can imagine the whole range is going to get upscaled and refreshed at some point.
Yeah, yes. So maybe, unless you're really, really keen on Grey Knights, maybe hold off a little bit. But yeah, there you go. Your Psyker anti-demon, super elite, awesome, cool. Yeah. And seeing as we've lost, we're coming to where they are now in a minute, but we've lost Deathwatch as the other sort of outlier. They're part of the orders of the Imperium that are dedicated to hunting certain things.
Yes.
It's Ordo Malleus, isn't it? The anti-demon stuff. Am I right?
Yeah. They're a faction of the Inquisition.
Yeah. And yeah, they're fantastic. So
they're a faction of the Inquisition. They're sort of. They're tied. Yes. Yes, sort of, but not really. But sort of.
But sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of, you know what, one little lore tidbit that I don't know is that Grey Knights were a super secret project, right?
Yeah.
And they were formed after the heresy, because they're not a founding chapter of themselves.
Well, negative.
Okay.
The seeds were sown for the Grey Knights during the age of the Horus Heresy. The plan was enacted then, so to fight the war that would come. It's actually one of Malcador, the Sigillites' special projects to sow the seeds for the Grey Knights to fight the war that would come.
A real hobbyist.
But I won't say any more than that, because it's anyone who's doing all the things. But there's quite a bit of lore on it in the Horus Heresy series, and the Buried Dagger goes into it quite considerably. One of the Garrow short stories goes into it quite considerably. It's good.
Our next faction is ties in very nicely to what we're talking about. They are essentially the newest faction, although this faction's been in and out since forever.
Right.
Under various names, various different things, but it's Imperial agents, right?
Okay.
So they've recently got a kind of mishmash codex was put together. I kind of really love the idea of it from a narrative perspective. I'm not 100% sure about the execution of it, but Imperial Agents essentially brings together all of the what we were talking about there, the different orders of the Inquisition. So you've got the Ordo Malleus, the Ordo Xenos and Ordo Hereticus.
Yes.
Which are linked in a way to the Deathwatch, the Sisters of Battle, and the Grey Knights. They're kind of auxiliary forces for those, right? And you have Inquisitors that go around doing Inquisition stuff, which is actually pretty crazy. They just root out and murder people. There's plenty of lore about Inquisitors, various different Inquisitors, if you're interested. But this is kind of bringing them back to the table in a playable form. It lets you use them. You can play them as their own army now because of this codex, but you can also use them as a little plug-in device for other armies.
Yeah.
Which I think is probably the way you'll see most of the stuff from this codex. That said, I have acquired a number of Imperial Agent stuff. I've got I really like the Adeptus Arbites or Arbites.
Arbites.
The Adeptus Arbites. I've always loved them.
The police.
The police, yeah.
Yeah.
So you can run a police army.
Yeah. Which are not Imperial Agents, but in the Imperial Agents book.
They are in the Imperial Agents book as a primary.
There's always been models and ranges that Games Workshop make that don't fit naturally in the other codexes. And so they're either been in the Demon Hunter Codex or Witch Hunter Codex or in this book or in that book, or the Deathwatch had their own book. And this time round, they've put them all together in one big book called Imperial Agents. And in it are all the Inquisition stuff, but also bits that are not part of the Inquisition at all, like road traders and PTs and things like that. And it's their waste paper bin of leftover shizzle that they can't put in the other drizzle.
Yeah, and it's an interesting choice. I don't want to get too much into the politics of it, but they kind of annihilated the Deathwatch faction with this. Pretty much everything that made Deathwatch what they were went straight to Legends. Everyone who's built like cool Primaris kill teams and stuff, just nah.
It is shocking considering
Smash them with a hammer.
Deathwatch feature at the start of Space Marine 2. They're front and centre. And you can get the shoulder pad, and everyone's talking about the Deathwatch, and a bunch of videos appear on YouTube. What are the Deathwatch and things like that? It's interesting that happened at the same time that Games Workshop decided the Deathwatch can't be their own standalone faction anymore. Instead, they're inserted into this book. Only a tiny little bit of them. A little bit of them is in this book.
Yeah.
And that's it. If you want to run Deathwatch, you need to run normal Space Marines and paint them in Deathwatch colours. Or you get the little bit out of this book.
Yeah.
And then you go online to Warhammer Community, download a PDF somewhere that tells you some stuff, which is the stuff they used to be, which you can run. But anything that you do PDF-wise that way is not official at tournaments anymore. Yeah. However, playing it at home with your friends and doing Deathwatch, that. Yeah. I think what's coming is a full Deathwatch refresh at some point in the future.
Yeah.
But I can't see that coming for an additional 2. They've got so many other things that they need to refresh now, like Grey Knights. We mentioned them. So they'll get back to Deathwatch at some point, because there's one thing we can be sure of is Games Workshop likes selling people more Space Marines in different colours and different armours.
They absolutely do.
Space Marines. Yeah. So
don't smash your Deathwatch collection with a hammer, but you can get 3 Deathwatch units. You can get the Watchmaster, a Corvus Blackstar, and a regular Deathwatch kill team. Yeah. One thing that it has done, which is great, was that I was able to get the White Scar from the proper. I can't remember the name of the kill team. Something
Cassius
or other. Cassius, that's the one. Yeah, I was able to get him really cheap because he used to be quite expensive to buy standalone, and I would occasionally look him up on eBay because he's a great. He makes a great White Scar, obviously, if you chop some bits up. Yeah. But it's a bit sad.
The main thing for Imperial Agents is it is an allies book.
Yes.
So you can get it if you want to ally some bits from that book into your other army. Because its rule is you can add 25%. Well, no, it's not that specific. It's you can add a couple of units from this book into any Imperial Force, Guard, AdMech, Space Marines. That's the main use for Imperial Agents. If you try and run it on its own as a standalone faction, you'll lose all the time.
You're going to struggle. Yeah, it doesn't have the tools. It has very few tools from the toolbox that you're going to need.
There isn't any long-range firepower in it for anti-tank anymore. There is one unit in it with one las cannon, and that is your long-range anti-tank.
Yeah.
That isn't an army, and that's the Corvus Blackstar, the twin las cannon on the Corvus Blackstar. Apart from that,
you get the Exorcist.
0. There isn't an Exorcist.
Oh no, it's not. It's the it's the multi-melters on the Immolator.
And that's 18-inch range, so that's not a long-range anti-tank.
Yeah.
I think there's also a multi-melter on the Servitor as well, but apart from those 2 units, there's no other multi-melters. Yeah. So there's 3 anti-tank weapons. 2 of them are 18-inch range. One is a 48-inch range las cannon on a flyer that might be in reserve. It's not a faction on its own. It's the waste paper bin of all the cool stuff, and there is a lot of cool stuff in there. A lot of the models in there are outstanding. So much character to them. But it's
Which
not
is
an army.
why I picked these up, because the new Inquisitorial Retinue is just a fantastic kit. It's so good.
Yes.
I've built my own little Inquisitor. You might be seeing that at some point down the line with their Inquisitorial agents, but they will be used as an add-on. I believe, depending on the battle size, you can take 1 to 2 to 3 characters and a retinue for each one, or something, or 2 whatever it is. It's also the only way you can bring assassins now. They are Imperial agents. So if you're into assassins, you can just you do it like you did before. You just add them on, and they count as an Imperial agent character quota.
Yeah.
And because I know that there's lots of people out there that like their Vindicares and things like that, naughty stuff, which I also have got recently because of this new thing. But if you're looking to get into 40k, stay well away from Imperial Agents as your choice, because you won't get the variety that the game offers. if you like the look of some of it and you want to play an Imperial army, you can bring some of it with you and you can plan your list around having a couple of those elements in there.
Yeah.
Next one is another very new faction that is kind of half built at the moment.
Right.
It's the Leagues of Votann.
Right.
Now, I like the Leagues of Votann.
Yes.
I have some myself.
Yes.
They have a cool aesthetic. If you're into their aesthetic, it's cool. Their lore, yes, I really like. But one of the big things I'd say about getting into this faction now is there isn't a lot of lore. There isn't. I think we basically just have the lore from the codexes.
What's a Votann?
A Votann is an AI head-like construct that is extremely valuable to certain other parties, mainly the Adeptus Mechanicus, I'd say. It's got STCs, it's got all kinds of stuff in it, hasn't it? It's basically like it's a supercomputer brain that is the central focus point for the Leagues of Votann, who are better known by their other name is Squats or Space Dwarves. They are essentially Space Dwarves.
Yeah, that's what the Imperium will call them, the logo. They're Space Dwarves in space.
They're Space Dwarves in space. They've had a big glow up. They've got a bit more, they've separated themselves from what the old Squats looked like, but also kept some of the flavour of it. It was a big joke about, people say when a faction disappears, they say they got squatted.
Yes.
So Squats were entirely nuked from the game. They slowly trickled back in through Forge World and then through Necromunda. We started to find Squats while doing mining operations. And then all of a sudden we have an announcement. Leagues of Votann are here. Yeah. They are a space-faring race that they protect their Votanns, which are supercomputer things. They are down with AI. They're down with living alongside AI. Yeah. You can, when you buy the kits, you can, instead of putting a dwarf head on, you can put a little dome head on and have an AI trooper, if you're into that. And you go on a bit site, you can make them all AI troopers if you want.
If you want to.
If you want to. I'm not a big fan of it myself, but
Space Dwarves in space.
Space Dwarves in space. Their thing on the tabletop is shooting. They have got some melee potential. They're
shooting Emily. They're the Berserkers, the not Terminators, the Hearthguard can
the Hearthguard can
their thing on the table. Squats weren't around for decades. And then Games Workshop brought them back, and their big thing is judgment tokens and judging people, which improves their shooting and their wounding.
Yes.
So it's a bit like the Oath of Moment thing that Space Marines do, and the thing that Chaos Space Marines can do as well. And all their units are a bit like Space Marines. They've got not Land Raiders, not Dreadnoughts.
Yes.
Sorry, not Devastators, not Terminators, not the thing that Games Workshop did when they brought this out is, yes, they're a cool looking model range, but I don't think that they distinguished it enough from some of the other factions that we already have.
I fully agree.
There's a reason why you might want to play a certain faction, because they're really quick, or they're really resilient, or they can zip, or they're very tricksy, and then Votann, their play style is similar to the other Imperial factions. Mm-hmm. They can shoot. They have got some tanks. They can. It's quite fleshed out for a new faction as well. There's quite a lot of different units in it. But but are the Space Marines copying them, or are they copying the Space Marines?
Yeah, that's the thing. Because now you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe in 40k, Space Dwarves are not a race in terms of they were always dwarves. I think they were like squashed by gravity or something. There's something about it.
Their backstory is they did originally come from Earth, not Terra, Earth, back in the day during the great expansion of humanity across the stars, where everything was good and shiny, and we reached we reached Asimov levels of human understanding and human civilization everywhere. And so they are genetically engineered abhumans that were designed to investigate and live inside the galactic core. It's the reason why they're still around, because the galactic core obviously is the galactic core. So there's very few that they're safe in there. They're very safe. They're very snuggly, and that's why they are the way they are. They're tough. They're resilient. They're squashed. So the Votann, the AI makes them. There's this. The AI makes the Votann, and the Votann look after the AI. It's a symbiotic relationship with this slowly degenerating, slowly arthritic mind, slowly collapsing in on itself, is making these almost antibodies, these abhuman antibodies, to keep feeding it and keep it alive and keep it alive and keep it alive. And then they keep them alive. That's what they are. Yeah,
and in terms of lore, we've still got a lot of it to come, I guess. We're going to have to see how they really get involved. And I'd say, as a beginner faction, if you're looking, I'd say they're a fair pick.
Yeah, they're a fair pick. They can do a lot of things the other factions can't do. They are a good, solid, reliable. There's nothing too tricksy about them. If you love the model range, if you like that sort of look, I think they're going for the Mass Effect look, the future human look. Yeah. The other thing about the Leagues of Votann is they're not that grimdark, except for the fact that they're a mass enslaved race of genetically engineered abhumans. Apart from the fact that they're basically, apart from that, they haven't, because the lore isn't that fleshed out yet. They don't go around genociding other things that we know of at this time.
That we know of, yeah. We'll see how that fleshes out. We'll see.
Yes.
But I honestly think that if you don't want to play Space Marines for whatever reason, but you want that army that's maybe a bit more forgiving in terms of, because you do have decent armor saves on some things, and you do have they also have a lot of. If you're an older fan of 40k, there's a lot of weapons in there that, like the conversion beams and stuff, that you've only really seen in Forge World, meant for Horus Heresy and things like that. Some of the older tech. Yeah. But that's Leagues of Votann.
Yeah, Leagues of Votann.
Next up, we have the other, it was a very easy army to get into. And they are also victims of Games Workshop never quite knowing where they want them to be. And this is the Necrons.
Yes.
I will tell you why. I'll give you a brief history lesson of the Necrons.
Right.
And whilst most factions have somewhat remained the same as to their original intentions, somewhat. Necrons, when they first came out, I was a young man in the 2000s, 2001 or whenever it was.
Yeah.
They'd been, I think they were, the early designs of them were called like Chaos Androids or something. And then Necrons came along, and the idea was that they were basically completely ripped out of Terminator.
Yeah.
They were a voiceless, faceless wall of machines that marched forward. They were incredibly powerful.
Their special rule, instead of "I'll be back," was literally "We'll be back." From 3rd edition to 7th edition. That was their rule.
Yeah, it was clear what they wanted to be. And because they were so powerful, in order to beat a Necron army, you had to reduce its force size down a certain amount, and then they would all just teleport off the table.
Yep.
And that was actually very bold of Games Workshop to come up with something that played differently, entirely differently. Necrons then have gone through a weird roller coaster ride of power. In 6th edition, they were incredible in melee and incredible at shooting. They were incredible at everything. They had so many shenanigans, so much raw power. The only thing they lacked was speed, which were filled in with those Tomb Blades. You could get the Tomb Blade bikes, which kind of took that weakness away. They didn't have any major weakness. Then they've been reinvented a few times over. So they had a complete lore refresh. in the lore refresh, all of a sudden there's quite a few of them that have personalities. Beforehand it was like some key players still had their brains. Now quite a few of them do. Not the standard spods, but all the characters are very chatty and have all different emotions and memories of when they used to be flesh people. They were these horrible skinny little creatures that looked a bit like they look now, but like made of flesh, and they lived on a planet with super bad radiation, and they all had really short lifespans and died after 20 minutes, and because of that they took to the stars. They ended up getting tricked by God. We probably talked about this before. They got tricked into basically we can help you live longer as a robot kind of trick. And there's Necrons that have memories of their families getting taken into this room and basically being destroyed,
fingered,
gruesomely, and coming out as mindless robots. So they got a little bit more drama to them now, and there's a bit more reasoning behind how some of them are, and like the I've completely forgotten the name of the destroyers. The destroyer cults and
Lockhurst destroyers.
No, just the
destroyers.
destroyer cults in general are all just really, really angry. They're hardwired for just angry about everything that happened. They used to have a rule called hardwired for hatred, but now it's also meant to now be driven by they're so angry that they get stuck in like a murder loop.
It's faulty. They got a bug going on. There's a bug in the Matrix.
It's a virus.
Destroyers, once unleashed, will keep destroying until every life, down to the molecular level, has been scoured from the face of a planet. That's cool.
Yeah, it's a cool.
They didn't touch that. They've left that.
They have left that, and I remember one. It was, I can't remember which book it's in, where a bunch of destroyers were literally they literally seek out anything, like a blade of grass has to die until it's just scorched earth. And then they got to kill all the bacteria. But anyway, to cut long story short, Necrons have been up and down, and where they currently land is a strange army. One thing that I think Games Workshop will always struggle with is allowing you to get units back up again. Sometimes it's more powerful in some editions. It's more powerful than others. In the weaker editions, and with some of the way that they'd decided to stat some of the models, it was quite easy for players to just bypass your reanimation entirely. There's been times when the basic Necron warrior was as good as shooting as a Space Marine, or even better when they're being guided. And I think where they stand at the moment is they've gone back to like a guardsman tier shooting. I think they got 4 uplisted skill at the moment. But it's an ever-changing faction. If you're into shooting, and you're into a bit of resilience, and you're into like big, powerful, crazy weapons with cool names like Death Rays, and
they literally have
Destructo beams.
Death Ray, a gun called a Death Ray.
Yeah,
I get Necrons. I've got Necrons. I like Necrons because
I've got
of
Necrons.
Death Rays. I mean, they heal now. I think they recover wounds now, and that mechanic seems to be actually working quite well, and I hope they don't monkey around with it too much, because it kind of works. And they haven't messed with the lore for a while, so and I don't think they will, because the War in Heaven and the Third War in Heaven are so well established in the canon by now. I think this is where they want them to be.
Yeah.
So killer robots in space that are over 60 million years old with weird, funky weapons, and if you like the aesthetic of them, and I really like the aesthetic of them, then get them. They'll do what they say on the tin, which is get back up again, and shoot you with big things. And they've got some fair punch in their army as well.
Yes, they do. And it's one of those factions that I think you'll get to experience them in all different ways, because they do tend to change. Whilst the lore is going to stay consistent, they do tend to switch around what bits of them are strong edition to edition.
It's one of those factions that it's been around since 3rd edition. It's actually quite well fleshed out. If you want to do lots of horde, mindless robots and have 100 models on the table, 120, 150, what you can. If you want to go highly elite with expensive models, with a lot of wounds and a lot of toughness, you can. If you want to go with lots of vehicles, Trike Stalkers and things and annihilation barges, and also you can do a mech force, you can do a horde force, you can do an elite force. It's quite a well-rounded book.
Yeah. You could even do a full melee force, which I wouldn't recommend personally, but you can. They have enough melee units now between the destroyers and the guard, the tomb guard, or the leash guard, or whatever they're called, and the flayed ones.
All sorts of Catans and things.
Catans, yeah. That's them. The next faction is very, very popular, and they also have had a bit of a change, quite a big change recently, for the better, I think, and that's Orks.
Right.
My opinion is Orks at T5 are where they should be.
It works, doesn't it?
I really like it.
It works.
It does work, and I've always thought that their lore, you're never going to match the lore to the tabletop, but I've always thought that the average boy was far less of a tough threat on the tabletop than they should be.
Yeah.
This is a race, it's the comedy faction, but it's not. This is a race that is literally designed for war. You'll get a lot of memes on the internet that aren't necessarily true to the canon. You'll see lots of funny things, but people like to. Orcs seem to be the fun, playful faction, whilst also being pretty killy and sort of very Warhammer-ish. It's just an army of dudes that love fighting all the time. They don't mess around with chaos gods and Imperiums and things like that. They just get all the boys together and they go and have a massive fight, and they laugh and they love it. And when their mates die, they laugh, and when they kill people, they laugh, and they're just having a great time. They operate on a hierarchy of, if you're the biggest one, you're the best one.
Yeah.
They believe some weird stuff like red things go faster and blue things are lucky. They're a fun faction. They, however, do have, they do push you in a certain direction. A shooting orc army is like hammering a nail in with a book, right? You can have a shooting orc army, but they are notoriously, amusingly poor shots.
Yes.
What they do is they fire lots and lots and lots of Daka, they call it.
You said do.
Didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or orc shooting, you can play this army if you want to have a more casual setting. You can play this army as a casual army. You can also play this army as a very, very powerful competitive army as well. There are very competitive builds for it of late. They've kind of been redone a lot over the last few years. It's been a bit of a slow grow. It started off with their vehicles, get lots of new vehicles and stuff. Then they had a whole other bolt-on section called the Beast Snaggers.
Yeah. Added
a whole new aesthetic to them that was kind of one of the... They had different tribes, and one of the tribes, the aesthetic kind of got pushed out a little bit more, in that they're kind of like the old ways orcs. All round, you're going to get a very tough, fairly fast, fairly aggressive army of very efficient melee units that can be buffed quite a lot with their special rules, that will have buckets of shooting that might not necessarily end up anywhere. But I tell you what, the amount of times I've been killed by rockets that are hitting on 5s, blowing up my vehicles that shouldn't have no right to do it, you'd be surprised. When the weight of dice is there, you'd be very surprised at how many 5-ups you can get and 6-ups you can get when you're playing as orcs.
Yeah. And Orc players tend to be some of the funnest, nicest people you'll ever meet. I've never had a bad game against an Orc player. You just unleash the inner beast, and I'm an Orc player as well. So just unleash the inner beast, have fun, roll dice, go wah a lot and scream, charge across the battlefield, and try and smother your opponent with bodies. It's a great army to play with. It's the pressure valve that 40k needs to let some of the steam escape from all the grim and the darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In reality, though, in the lore, if you were to be attacked by Orcs, it probably would be quite a terrifying ordeal.
Yeah.
These grunting sort of green pigmen who are extremely violent and uncaring is what you'd see. But yeah, Orcs. I'd always recommend Orcs if you look at Orcs and you think, oh, they appeal to me. I like the look of those guys. Go for it. They're a great army. You can get one Orc army in. There's so many options. You could just build on it. In fact, I'd say Orcs are one of the factions where you see the most people who have like 50,000 points of Orcs, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, look at my table of Orcs.
People don't get Orc armies. People get Orc collections.
Yeah, Orc collections. They're a great collection force.
Yeah. And again, another one that's been around since the start. It's always been updated. They're always getting more models. It's always been popular. And it'll always keep getting updated, and it'll always be popular. It's Orcs. Orcs are great fun.
Yeah. And if you like reading 40k era books as well, they turn up absolutely everywhere. They're either the bad guy or it's about Orcs. Orcs are everywhere. You'll find them all the time. And if you're an Orc player and you want to see Space Marines struggling against them, you can read Rin's World. Yeah. About the Crimson Fist.
Or if you're an Orc player and you want to read a book about Orcs, there's the War Boss. There's a trilogy by Mike Brooks. I think the first one's called War Boss, and then there's the Big Dacker, and they're really good. I'd recommend.
Brutal Cunning.
Brutal Cunning.
First one. Yeah. So that's Orcs. Have we not done Space Marines yet?
Do LMNOPQ.
I feel like we would have.
We haven't hit S yet.
No, and yeah, we've.
Or did we do them when we did A at Starties?
Yeah, I feel like we did an episode of Starties.
I mean, do we need to do Space Marines? Everyone knows who a Space Marine is. Even people who like work at Tesco's snacking shelves, they know what Space Marines are. Everyone knows what Space Marines are. They're world famous now. If Henry knows what a Space Marine is, everyone knows what a Space Marine is.
Old henners. Listen, we've got about 8 minutes left, right?
Oh, okay.
So what I think we should do is let's spend 8 minutes. We'll do the quickest rundown of Space Marines and how their play styles might differ, right?
Okay.
You probably know this. You probably don't need this, but there might be that one person who's played Space Marine 2, is watching this video, wants to play Space Marines as well, and is like, but they're all different colours. What does it mean?
They don't have a playstyle, Chris.
The answer is it doesn't mean anything anymore in the current edition because you can actually play whatever colour you want. However, lore-wise, if you want to be a lore fiend, there are some considerations, right? At the moment, Space Marines have got an interesting thing going on in them, and that is that some of them have been fully fleshed out as their own faction. Dark Angels, Blood Angels, Black Templars, kind of. They don't currently have a big codex of their own, but they had a big release. Once you get those to one side, you're left with armies that can use anything from the primary Space Marine codex, but nothing of those specific ones. They get their own units. They're special. Space Marines can be built however you want. If you've played Space Marine 2, because you're a special person, you've seen the different kinds of guns you can get. You can have guys running around with big heavy weapons, guys running around with small weapons. You can be in Phobos armor, light, quick armor that lets you infiltrate up the board. They're Space Marines. They're going to get the job done. They are the beginner faction. They are also the veterans faction. Space Marines are what makes 40k, right? All the stories, they are the centre focus of so many stories. They are the powerful hand of humanity
The power fist.
The power fist of humanity.
The big chonking fist.
Sent out, like we sent out our regular dudes to colonize across the world, and now this is how we hold on to it. Then we thought,
now we give them a dude with a giant fist.
Yeah. Now we get our children, we cut them open, and we put an extra heart in.
Yeah.
Some other organs in. We put some weird stuff in. Yeah.
A few other bits.
Some of them will probably die. Never mind.
Yeah.
The ones that don't are going to be well strong. They're going to be well hard. If you thought that kid was bad enough throwing your rucksack over the fence and stealing lunch money, these ones, literal children in the body of a 8-foot tall behemoth. Anyway, listen, we don't have enough time to go through all of them and we don't need to either.
I don't think you need to, because Space Marines can do anything.
They can do anything.
They are the faction that has the widest array of units. I mean, in some cases, compared to other factions, they've got literally 3, 4, 5 times as many units as some of the units out there. When you compare them to World Eaters or things like that, they'll have 10 times the number of units that some of the other factions have. So their play style is, what do you want to do with your Space Marines? Do you want them really quick? You can build an army that's really quick. Do you want them really resilient with heavy armor and tank? You can build them really resilient. Do you want an armored company? You can make an armored company. Do you want them really aggressive and punchy? You can make them really aggressive and punchy. Games Workshop have made sure that anyone who collects Space Marines can collect them and play with them in the way that they want to collect them and play with them. The thing about Space Marines is, if you make them really, really punchy and aggressive, they're not going to be more punchy and aggressive than the most punchy and aggressive armies. If you're going to make them really, really, really shooty and stand back, then they're not going to be more shooty than the army that's supposed to be stand back and shooty. If you want to make them really resilient and chonky, then they can be really resilient and chonky, but they're not going to be more resilient and chonky. So on the graph of 1 to 10, they float around between 3s and 7s. So they're good at everything, but excel at nothing.
The jack of all trades, master of none, right?
By design.
Yeah.
So that's what Space Marines do. And then there's different flavours of them, like you mentioned, and that have their own specific things, which specialise even more at some of those things. Like Blood Angels are really good in melee. You want Space Marines that are really good in melee and really angry? Here's some red guys that are even better in melee and really angry. That's what Space Marines do. So you can't really summarise them other than to say they do everything. Yeah. Space Marines do everything.
They're the easiest faction to get cheaply.
Yes.
You can usually...
a lot of eBay stuff going on out there when it comes to Space Marines.
Tons of eBay. Yeah. All the starter sets usually have an array of Space Marines in them of some kind. They are the flagship army. You won't be let down. If you go for Space Marines, you'll always have a chance to win.
Yeah.
And a chance to lose. It's not going to be like trying to play your first games with Genestealer Cults, where I don't really fancy your chances unless the other person is very, very new and also picks a finesse army. Space Marines are very forgiving as well. If you accidentally misplace some units, they've got power armor, so the chances are you're not going to completely lose that unit to whatever mistake you've made, whereas other factions you will definitely lose stuff for putting them out of position. So keep that in mind, and go get some Space Marines, because they're also quite in terms of painting, they're quite nice to paint. They've got a lot of colour, solid colour, but they've got really nice big details that you can paint into it and look really good without having to have tiny micro dot vision.
They don't believe in camo, do they? Their colour is a weapon in itself. They want you to see them coming.
Yes.
Because many armies will break and run, seeing Space Marines bearing down towards them.
Yeah, and the audacity of wearing like bright blue armour or bright green armour and walking into an urban environment like, hey, they just don't care because they are tough bastards. Apologies for all the coughing I've had today. I've been ill for a couple of weeks. Just low key. Everyone in my office is taking it in turns to have a cold.
Have you got an STC?
I've got an STC, mate.
Yeah.
But I've been drinking Barocca every day, so I've kind of got this low... It hasn't really kicked in. I've just got this kind of... And I was a bit bunged up on the last one, but this one seemed to have a bit of a dry cough.
A bit of a dry, yes.
So
a bit of a blockage.
Yes. Anyway, we did a great job, Winters.
Did we?
Yeah, we made it all the way from
D.
Death Guard D.
Yes.
All the way
to S.
All the way down to Space Marines, and we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 factions left. Yeah. So maybe I'll get some questions. This might. I don't know what the odds of this are, but we'll perhaps go back to the questions. I'll get some questions for the next episode because it's Halloween.
Maybe we'll whip a thing as well for the horse emoji or something for the.
We need to raise a budget. No, we need to raise a budget for that.
Because we put in like a code word for people who've watched it this far. You know that thing, like if you've watched it this far.
How did I forget that?
You forgot the thing, because there's some real ones who'll watch this all the way through. I don't know why, but they'll watch this all the way through while they're painting their little men's and things.
I've had a great idea.
What?
Why don't we all get in on a joke together, right? Okay. So if you're watching this, we'll pretend there's a competition or something. Okay. And we'll say, look, put in the comments like, oh, I really want to win that. I can't believe he's giving away the 13th or something.
Fully painted starter set. Fully painted No, you can't be giving away the 13th.
Yeah, but that would shock people. Okay, all right. Obviously
I can't believe they're giving away a Warlord Titan.
A Warlord Titan.
Yeah.
And then so let's say the answer.
The Warlord Titan question is bunnies, or the answer to the Warlord Titan question. No, it's not bunnies. It is something funny. Insert here, but don't write something funny. Insert here.
Write the funny thing.
Yes,
Yeah, because everyone then have a different answer, and it'll be like, well, what was this question?
And then we'll know you're a real one. Yeah. And then you got to the end for the code word that we can't think of right now, but something to do with.
But you're going to think of it this time.
You're going to think of it. Yeah. Yes.
To win the Warlord Titan. That isn't real, but
isn't real.
We're all in on the joke, so it's funny for us and
then
you.
Some people in the comment section, yes, I like it. That's like
layers, levels,
Definitely, yeah.
Well, if you have made it this far, like genuine thanks though, because like we just waffle on about stuff, don't we? And people paint their models and they listen to it, and
part of the joy.
Some people say it's nice. They like
part of the joy of the hobby is talking about the hobby with other people who want to talk about the hobby.
Yeah,
that's part of the hobby. That's part of the joy of the hobby. I like talking about the hobby with the thing.
I like talking about it too.
It's nice.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
Until next time, which will be like Halloweenish time. We'll do some questions.
When is Halloween? Is it the 5th or
no, the 30th of October or 30th. Yeah,
the next one will come out definitely after Halloween. Then, right? Surely, maybe. Yes.
Okay. So whatever. You know what? We don't.
It's too what?
We don't live by these strict rules. We'll see how the next one will come along, and I will let you know on Discord what's going on. If we need questions, if we're going to do something else, if we're going to do this or that, or we live. We're just we live for the moment, don't we?
You said the only rule to the STD is there are no rules. There are no rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know what? Suck it.
Is that a rule?
That is a rule, isn't it? Yeah.
But there isn't.
Yeah.
How does?
Listen. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.